What's going on? Back for the third and final time covering the FIFA 2022 World Cup. I'm Betya of the MMA Engine. Thank you for tuning in and watching the video. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. And if you haven't already watched the previous two videos I did about the group stages, please go check those out when you can. Lots of good betting nuggets for all of you out there to cover your degenerate gambling for a month. So today we're going to get from 16 teams to one. If you haven't watched their videos, you won't understand why I've arrived at the 16 teams that I have making the knockout stage, but no big deal. We will go through that today. And when I get to the final four, I will start telling you who I think wins the Golden Ball Award, which is the tournament MVP, and the Golden Boot, which is the top scorer, and also not to be confused with Das Boot. So with that being said, let's get right into it. So make this a little bigger, make this less big. Okay. So with Denmark and Uruguay winning their groups, this is what we've arrived at in how I think the group stage will play out. Now, that sets up this is the bracket, and we're just going to go through it relatively quickly. There's no betting lines for this at the moment, so you can bet teams to make a certain stage, get eliminated at a certain stage. I'm not recommending doing that. I'd prefer go game by game at this point. You don't know who's going to be injured by this point, any weird stuff that could happen, maybe red card suspensions. We just don't know. So let's go through game by game here. Netherlands versus Wales. Wales is going to come out of that group with the U.S. and England, in my opinion. And even if this is the U.S. in this spot, these are teams that typically they don't have the firepower to really stick with a Netherlands squad that is built the last couple of years for tournaments like this. So give me the Netherlands to defeat Wales. Let's come down here. Germany, Canada. Canada's a nice story that they're even making it this far. I do think they come out of that, really difficult group with Croatia, Morocco, and Belgium. But I think Germany is going to be way too much for them. And ironic that Canada's best guy does play for Bayern Munich, but I think Germany blows out Canada here and ends their World Cup. Argentina and France. Now, this is probably the game of the round. Messi versus Mbappe. It's going to be high scoring. This is a rematch of a game from the Euros, which was just out of hand amazing. Ended with Pavard's incredible goal of the tournament that he hit from outside the box. It's a really tricky one to call. You're going to get plus odds on whoever you bet here on this game. But I'm going to go with Argentina to keep the dream alive for Messi's last run. Brazil and Portugal, last time out I talked about how there's just something with this Portugal team I don't love. I do think they escape the group. I don't think they win the group. I think Uruguay beats them. But this is where it ends. Brazil is the favorite in the tournament for a reason. They're better everywhere than Portugal, and I think they make pretty easy work of them. I don't know what the number is going to be, but anything under minus 200 is worth the poke. So England against Senegal. Talked about how Senegal is going to have some injury issues early on, but I do think they have enough to get past Ecuador, to get past Qatar, and get into the stage. I'm not huge on England like most people are. I think their squad there's just something fundamentally flawed with them. They don't score enough goals, but they should have enough to get past Senegal here. Belgium, Spain. Now, here's one of the tougher games for me to predict. I think that Belgium, if Lukaku is back by this point, and I believe he should be, it's definitely going to be a tricky game. And I'm not huge on Spain either, but this is what their team is built for this. They have good youth. They have good veterans. They're a good tournament team, and I think they get past Belgium here to get to the quarterfinals. Denmark and Mexico, short and sweet. I'm big on Denmark this year. And also Mexico in the knockout stage, 7 World Cups in a row, out in the round of 16, 7 World Cups in a row. Who am I to buck that trend? Let's go Denmark. And finally, we have Uruguay and Serbia. Pretty interesting game, and this is a sneaky under the radar, really good game because Uruguay, as we talked about last time, Darwin Nunez is an absolute terror. Suarez, still at his age, is knocking in goals. They're a really fun team to watch. And Serbia, talked about some of their injury issues. Vlahovic is probably not going to play. Mitrovic says he's going to gut it out. That is to be seen, but I do think they have enough to at least get out of the stage. But they don't have enough to beat Uruguay here. I think Uruguay gets past Serbia in what's probably like an interestingly high scoring game, like a 3-2 game. So I think that is one to look out for as a fan. So now we move to the semifinals. Now, before I get into this is going to get us to the Final Four. Now, when I get to the awards, there's a couple things you're looking for tournament MVP, and especially for the Golden Ball Award. And one of them is that they play the most games. Now, this will be the 5th game for all these teams involved. 5 games could be enough to win the top score. It's not enough to win the Golden Ball. I'll say that. You have to make the Final Four to really be considered for that. It's not a lock, but it's for the most part. Now, I bring it up at this stage because when we get to the Final Four, all 4 of those teams will end up playing the full 7 games. There is a consolation game between the 2 runners up in the semifinals. So plenty of time to get more goal scoring, to pad that, and to work on the Golden Ball race. So I'm not keen on making a Golden Ball pick until we get to the next round. Just wanted to explain that going forward. Netherlands, Argentina. This is going to be, these are all going to be really good games at this point. This is the competition at this point. All 8 of these teams are tremendous at defense, are tremendous at offense. Their tournament, I mean, I don't know. There's nothing more I can say. I'm just looking at this, and it makes me so excited as a fan. I'm going to stick with Argentina getting past the Netherlands here. I think this is another game that could be really interesting and high scoring, but I'm going to say that Messi and Lautaro just eke by Netherlands. I think Netherlands, by the next World Cup, the next Euros, may be ready to take that next step, but not quite yet. So give me Argentina to advance there. And who will they play? Germany or Brazil? I mean, Brazil, again, the tournament favorites. They're objectively better than Germany at every position, except maybe goalkeeper. And even then, it's pretty close. Give me Brazil to advance against Germany. And I should mention that this is kind of a revenge spot for Brazil. Germany beat them, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was 7-1 a couple of years ago. And it was just, people in the crowd were crying. I bet Germany, so it was hilarious. But yeah, that I'm sure the Brazilian fans have not forgotten about that game. So give me Brazil, and that may be an interesting game to take a -1.5 or a -2.5 and just see if they really pour it on. Quarterfinal number 3. Now, for the most part, I imagine that most people's quarterfinals to this point, we're going to have Brazil. They're even money to make it this far, which I don't think is, you never want to really make that bet. You never know. But Argentina is very close. I think they're 3rd most favorite to make it this far. So that part of the bracket is pretty chalky. But now we're going to get a little weird here. So England, Denmark, I said I wasn't big on England, and I said I'm huge on Denmark. These 2 teams played in the Euros last summer, and Denmark was without Christian Eriksen, their best guy, and they went to overtime, and England beat them in extra time to advance to the final, where they would then lose to Italy in a penalty shootout. I don't want to say this is a revenge game. I mean, the Danes are pretty nice people. I don't know if they think that way, but if they were that competitive against England without their best guy, I think this is the time they take it to England and they go one step closer to their goal. Give me Denmark to defeat England in the quarterfinals. And then we get to the other quarter, Spain against Uruguay. I have very bad luck betting on Spain traditionally. I can't figure this team out. When I think they're going to score a lot, they get shut out. They play 0-0 games. They're an interesting squad this year. They don't really have a weakness. Call this a gut feeling. I feel like Uruguay has just enough to squeak by them in like a crazy 1-0 overtime game. I'd actually consider betting the draw and then betting Uruguay to advance in extra time or a shootout. So I'm going to take the flyer here on Uruguay. So now that we have reached the semifinals, let's talk about some of the awards. So let's talk about the Golden Boot first for most goal scorer, for most goals. I typically would want to have somebody on each team here. I'm going to leave Denmark out of this because Denmark, other than Braithwaite, they're not a team where one guy has a ton of goals. They pretty much spread the wealth around. The last 10 World Cups, only once has the winner exceeded 6 goals. The original Ronaldo from Brazil had 8 back in 2002. So 6 goals is kind of the target here. Now, what I'm looking for is a couple of things. Ideally, you want somebody that takes penalty kicks, but we're not going to get that here with the picks that I have. You also want a player in a group where they could put up 4 goals in the group stage, maybe 5, where you're going to play 2 teams that are defensively liable and they can steal a couple in a rout. That's really what you're looking for here. But you also want to find good odds, which is obviously a really stupid thing to say if I'm talking to gamblers watching this. But when you look at these odds and you have Lionel Messi sitting there at 10 to 1, Harry Kane at 7 to 1, Neymar at 10 to 1. I mean, I want more meat on the bone for my kind of bet here. So I'm going to talk about 3 of these guys that I think really have a chance to break through. One of them is on Argentina. It's Lautaro Martinez. I was talking to my buddy Max this morning about it. Him and I were talking about this pick. Martinez scores a lot for Inter Milan, and Serie A is a pretty big defensive league. Inter themselves are a pretty defensive team. He doesn't need much to score. This guy is an incredible natural talent. And I think that with all the coverage being focused on Messi, I think that Martinez is poised to have a big tournament. So I have bet him at plus 1,800 for the Golden Ball, and I have him at plus 1,800 for the Golden. Did I write this right? Yeah, I did. For both the Golden Ball and the Golden Boot. I do think you can win both, but they don't typically like to do that unless you're dominant. But I feel like if Argentina does make this run to the semifinals and at worst wins the consolation game, I do think he's going to be in contention for these. Next up, let's take somebody on Brazil. I'm looking at Vinicius Jr. He's plus 2,800 to win Golden Boot. In all fairness to Brazil, there are so many guys in that team that can score goals. But it's another situation that, like I brought up with Lautaro, where I think the attention's going to be focused on Neymar, and I think whoever their second option there is incredibly valuable to me here. So Vinicius Jr. to win the Golden Ball is plus 1,600, Golden Boot plus 2,800. I have taken stabs on both of those as well. Let's go to the right side with Denmark and Uruguay. Like I said, I'm not going to take anybody on Denmark for the top scorer, and this is my favorite bet of the tournament. I'm taking Christian Eriksen to win tournament MVP at plus 6,500. I love this bet. I think there's tons of value on it. There's not only reasons that he's the best player on this team, and typically the best player on the team, if they get this far, will win the award. 4 years ago, Luka Modric, midfielder on Croatia, on the losing team in the final, took home that award. If Denmark makes the final, and we'll find out in a second what I think, if they make the final, Christian Eriksen is the best player on that team, and he's the reason they got there. From a narrative perspective, I don't typically like to play narratives, but the guy had a heart attack at the Euros. It was, as a fan, I have to say, it was like one of the most terrifying moments I've ever seen in sports. It was awful to watch. He's so young, and he just collapsed on the field in cardiac arrest. Now, took a few months off. He healed. He's been playing domestically. He plays for Manchester United. He's 100% now. I feel that if Denmark makes it that far, you just can't deny. How do you not deny the story of him coming back, a year after one of the worst memories in international soccer, to lead Denmark this far? So I like him for Golden Ball. No predictions on Golden Boot for that team. But that's a different story on Uruguay. And I have mentioned Darwin Nunez several times. I think unless Luis Suarez just poaches goals from him, which knowing Suarez is possible, I think that Nunez has a really good chance to make a deep run here. And he is plus 2,800 to win top scorer. I love it. And he is plus 5,000 to win MVP of the tournament. It's another situation like with Eriksen where if they make the final, and as long as he has a good tournament, because there are other good players on Uruguay that could usurp him as top player on the team. If they make it that far, he's going to take a lot of consideration for tournament MVP. So plus 5,000, I love it. Eriksen plus 6,500 is like my favorite weird bet in this tournament. I'm here for it. And now that I've talked about the awards, let's get to the Final Four and what I estimate here. Argentina and Brazil. Oh, man. This is an epic waiting to happen. There's going to be a lot of nervous fans. These two teams do not like each other. Let me make that incredibly clear. They do not like each other at all. So I think it's just Brazil's time. This team, as good as Argentina is, I feel like Brazil can edge them here. If you want to take the shot on Argentina, I understand that, but I'm going with my gut here that Brazil gets it done and gets to the final. Denmark and Uruguay is going to be a very different game than Argentina and Brazil. Whereas I expect Argentina and Brazil to be a little more wide open, a lot of chances, a lot more flashy. I think Denmark Uruguay is a 1-0 game. This is going to be a meat grinder. And I think Denmark has the discipline, has the experience on the squad to sneak past Uruguay and make the final to play Brazil. So here we go. Now we're at the finals. As far as the third place playoff goes, I don't really have a strong take on this. I'm going to say Argentina wins, and this is the send-off that Messi and company get. I think it'll be a wonderful moment. Darwin Nunez will be back. We'll see him again making deep runs in this tournament. So Brazil, Denmark. Now, I have been saying all these videos how much I love Denmark, and just the story is so great with Christian Eriksen. They're just such an underrated squad the way they go about their business. But this is Brazil's year, and this is their tournament, and we're all just living in it. So I'm going to say that Brazil finds a way in what may not even be that competitive a game. Denmark is kind of a step down from Argentina. I know that's a real hot take. I get it. But I think Brazil can comfortably win this game. Denmark is not really equipped to come from behind. So if Brazil gets out early, this could get real ugly. And 4 years ago in the World Cup, when we had France and Croatia, France took over early and kind of ran away with it. In the middle of the second half, they really took that game over completely. But them having the lead forced Croatia to kind of come out of their defensive shell. And I think that Brazil can do the same thing here. So give me Brazil to win the World Cup. They're not really worth betting pre-tournament at all. At least I don't think so. They're plus 350 to win. You're probably going to get a bunch of games along the way where you're going to get plus odds. Like that Argentina game, you probably get plus odds on them. So I would just rather bet them every game than take them pre-tournament. But I like them to finish the job and avenge that horrible loss to Germany years ago. So those are my final picks. In conclusion, I like a Final Four of Brazil and Argentina on one side, Denmark and Uruguay on the other. If France or Portugal wins their groups, this throws off everything for me. So those two games, Uruguay versus Portugal, which is probably for Group F or Group H, and Denmark France for Group D, are the two most crucial games for me because that sets everything up. The left side of the bracket is going to be a murderer's row of teams, whereas the right side of the bracket, I'm not denigrating Mexico or Poland, which would be the second place team that comes out of that group, but certainly a lot easier than going through the Argentina side. As good as Serbia is for me, you'd much rather go through them. England has shown such frailties in the last couple of months internationally. So I feel like the right side of the bracket is the one where we get a little wacky. The left side's pretty chalky, but that has been your World Cup primer. Thank you for paying attention and listening. Tried to keep these as short as I could. During the tournament, I will be posting my bets every single day. I've written down what games I'm betting for the first 3 rounds of the tournament. I'll release them day by day by day. I could even do a video after the group stage and give analysis on what we saw heading into the knockout stage and maybe redo a bracket poll depending on what I got wrong here. Hopefully it is not Denmark and Uruguay, but you never know with these kind of things. So if you do gamble on this tournament, and I assume you are if you've watched this, good luck. Let's all win the money. Let's get that bag, and let's go to Denmark. Take care, guys.